Roy's expertise in broadcast media and sterling recording that, but also about mainstream broadcast media, film, and the arts, and those that work within it. And the question is if they have a responsibility to those, to viewers, to produce positive and constructive media, particularly news content. So please share, like this video. Your comments are welcome below. And let's get to it. Welcome, Roy.
Good morning. Good morning.
Please tell us about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm a producer. I basically put together TV ideas. I bring teams together of people to develop ideas, and sometimes they're my ideas, sometimes they're ideas that come to me, and we get them onto Channel 4, BBC, Channel 5, international broadcasters in America and around the world. And so I suppose my job is kind of try and be a fire starter for ideas that we think we can get funded and out into what broadly is mainstream media. I've done some stuff on digital. I ran a TV company for campaigning chef Jamie Oliver for some years, and we were there together sometime. And yeah, we had a YouTube channel, FoodTube, which was fantastic and really good fun. And we got a lot of fantastic food recipes, but also inspiring content out. But a lot of the time, I've been like 35 years now trying to get TV to get good stuff onto TV.
So you whilst doing that, you've made game-changing impact within the industry. I just wondered what your proudest achievement is.
I think, if you've been in it for 35 years, you're going to have to have made a lot of programs. I met some friends last night who were talking about a series we made about, 15, 17 years ago, called The Gambler. And it was a series made with a writer, sadly now passed on. And the premise was very simple. He had 12 grand to gamble, and he went around the world, and we filmed it. And it's one of those series where, millions of people have seen it over the years, I've made programs that have had more viewers, but everyone who saw it pretty much got it. And also I feel a sense of closeness. The guy who made it with became a friend. He wrote books, and he died. And I sort of think to myself, there was something very touching and quite profound about it. And I think there's two types of things you can do. You can touch people by overtly saying, we are going to do something. You can campaign. And Jamie Oliver, who we work with, campaigned. He campaigned for people to eat healthier food. He campaigned for schools to have better meals. We campaigned to try and get sugar out of product. That's overt campaigning. And then there's stuff which is investigative, where you're trying to get the truth, where you're trying to dig for the truth and get people to tell things they didn't necessarily want to tell, which is what this year The Guardian has done so magnificently with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and the Windrush. And then sometimes you're just trying to make something where a bit more in the form of kind of like literature, where you're speaking in metaphors, you're trying to give people an experience which is necessarily preaching one particular idea. It's just getting them to connect with the fact that media does not have to be, it should not be cheap, but it certainly can be ambitious. And I think that what I've always wanted to do is kind of embrace the complexity of the world in a form that's quite often seen as sort of lowbrow and just fodder. And TV's fun. TV could be a football match. TV could be a Strictly and warm and Saturday night. It can be incredibly funny, The Office, or Peep Show, or Charlie Brooker. It's I grew up in TV. My dad helped design studios for the BBC, so I grew up going to see TV shows as a kid, and I've always loved talking to people, and I didn't want to do it in a small way. I didn't want to become an academic and produce papers that a few hundred people would read. I always wanted to get ideas out to the largest number. And when I started, there were, well, I literally started at the beginning of Channel 4, which was the beginning of a sort of reaching out to the diversity of Britain. But before that, there were a very small number of channels. And as time's gone by, the idea now that there might be a couple of people watching live, a very individualized channel, it just wasn't even a concept. So one adapts.
Speaking of adapting and continuing what you're saying, there's a Bruce Springsteen's lyric that I've always remembered out of the ones I love: 57 channels and nothing on. Now, for me, there's a movement of there's a movement in the UK and beyond wanting to mainstream channels content to be more constructive or positive and like rooted in editorial that is informative beyond tabloidy and sensational headlines, actually giving people positive starts of achievements and inspirational stories, not just the negative war, poverty, and all this stuff. So, but on the other hand, is it that there is not enough of that available in the mainstream, in your opinion, or is it that people don't look for it? I just wondered what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I started out on a news channel, and the old adage, dog bites man isn't a story, man bites dog is. I think that people are looking to be engaged, and the business. I mean, show business is called show business because it's partly a business. It's generally funded by money, and a lot of people wonder why certain things are on TV, and it's normally because it's what pays. And I think that you have to try and work while working within the forum of a business. You have to try and do your best within it, and sometimes, if you can, subvert it. One of the nicest things anybody said to me was that I got good ideas in under the radar, as it were. But to the notion of positive news, I think it depends. I mean, I mentioned The Guardian and Facebook. And Facebook 5 years ago was a positive news story. It was fantastic. It connected you with friends, and it was fantastic. But there was a darkness there that, I mean, I wouldn't blame them for trying to make the business pay. A lot of people put money into it, but the paying was about data, and the data was being corrupted, and that was a story that needed to be told. It's not a positive story, but it's a necessary story. And I've always believed if you were gonna take on a hard target, so don't make a TV program that made fun of or exploited people who came along of their own goodwill. So I always had a rule: you do not fuck with the people who are contributing to your program, because there's something fundamentally wrong about that. And I think a lot of programs do use talent and make them into entertainment and not necessarily for their advantage. But if you're dealing with corporations who need to be held to account, or politicians need to be held to account, then you need to be tough, and you need to be able to be well informed enough to ask them questions. And they want you to be telling positive stories. A lot of news is PR. A lot of news is PR funded by the rich companies. So I think positive news is about, it's about, when Al Gore told an inconvenient truth, he needed to get out there and tell us things we didn't want to know. But at the end, it was about, what can you do about it? What can you do? What can you do to turn the thing around? So I think it's about the interplay of both the truth telling, fourth estate, which, if you undermine it or pull it apart, we would miss it. But then, do you want? I mean, you talk about war. Yeah, we need to know about war. We need to know about war. If we didn't know about war, we wouldn't know what to vote for in Parliament, whether to go and intervene in foreign countries. So the media's role is very deeply responsible. So you asked, do we have a responsibility to our viewers? Absolutely. And I think it's a very sacred trust, and anybody who has a chance to work in it and a living by it is very privileged. But you shouldn't. I do take it seriously.
I think you've always held it's a kind of duty of care in a way, and that whole kind of integrity for contributors, for talent and such is a duty of care. That's how I always saw it entering this, and yeah, so it's great. I just wondered, actually, I was going to ask you whether you had any kind of resistance for any of the stories and the propositions that you pitched to commissioners. Was there any kind of resistance? I mean, you got things under the radar, or if not, do you think the stuff that you got under the radar would be commissioned now?
I mean, if you're a producer, you will have dozens, the majority of the things you pitch will not be commissioned unless you pitched. You can't pitch only what you know will be commissioned, because you don't know what will be commissioned. You're out there, there's a lot of competition. So the short answer is, I don't know why things get turned down, and it's not really. There's no really simple answer to that. I was once told at one particular period when they were commissioning a lot of kind of quite cruel programs, that I didn't have what they call the streak of cruelty, and the streak of cruelty, I don't think was there towards eliminating the truth. It was to providing a certain kind of entertainment out of people, and I took that in some ways a badge of honor. I don't think, though, I think it would be self-serving to say that the stuff I'd had turned down was turned down because of some bad faith on behalf of the commissioners. I think everybody's looking for, they're looking at one sense for eyeballs and audiences, and at another level, they're looking to make a mark. And you would make programs sometimes that didn't get a huge audience, and the channel or BBC would say, it's a pity, it's a lovely show, but it didn't quite find an audience. And increasingly these days, it's about marketing. You have to find a way of marketing to your viewers. But I don't actually complain about stuff that didn't get there.
Okay. So, turning this around, please comment below, like, share. We welcome anything that you relate to and your ideas. So, Good Vibes Solutions is a platform that basically mainly inspirational stories, expertise from different spheres, but also the solutions apply to challenges and how they were overcome, and also inspiration. So, we're going to move on to the segment about Roy's passions. Breaking it down and to how they were used and what were inspirations. So we're going to start off with instruments. Are you still playing instruments? What do you play and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, I learned to play clarinet at school. I went on to play saxophone. I enjoy playing. I played, in rock bands, funk bands, briefly in jazz groups, and more recently in R&B. I haven't played so much recently, but I played in bands all my life, and for me, it's relaxing. And then about 10 years ago, I started singing, and I sang originally in the band, and we were just noodling around in rehearsal. And it's a bit more than 10 years ago now, and started singing and ended up in the band I was playing in. Pretty much all of us sang, and that was fantastic. And now I sing in a choir, and I find all of that very releasing and inspiring and enjoyable. And particularly if you work in a business where it's quite pressured, it's a great thing to do I always think that the most interesting people you work with have what they call a hinterland, and the hinterland is a life outside, what they do in the daytime, and the people I get on with best have got some kind of spiritual, not just, something that's theirs that they don't have to. And I can remember, when you're under pressure and you're always out there for somebody, for the people you're working with or the people you're selling to, it's good to have something that's your own, and that you're not necessarily in competition, but just something you do. And yeah, I love doing that.
Your time has, what I've always admired about you is that you've protected your time, your hinterland, your family time, and in a very, very demanding, as a high level player in our industry, very demanding. So I've always wondered how you actually had that life work balance, how you actually achieve that when it's so demanding and juggling, multitasking so much.
I think I think you have to make choices. You can, and I've got kids growing up now, and one of them talks a lot about how he manages his time. I mean, time management for me is a kind of obsession. I'm probably overly conscious of time. We were on the beach the other day, and three of us were all guessing what the time was, and I guessed it to the minute, and there's something slightly worrying about that. I think that if you balance your mind and body, they say a healthy mind and a healthy body, so I try and keep fit. I think if you have laughter, if you have time to breathe, I'm not a mindfulness man. I was given the mindfulness book by somebody I later found out to be someone with extremely bad faith. So I don't read books of sayings about how to lead your life. I think you find your own way, and what is mindful to one is, pretentious to another. So I find everybody has a way, and I think that, look, there are some people for whom they're always in the workspace, and there are other people who think that I'm always in the workspace. It's a flow. I think if you are passionate about what you do at work, it's a lot easier, because I know people who work and make a lot of money, but it is definitely their work, and they don't love it in the way that I think people who are fortunate enough to be in creative businesses love it. If you are in a creative business, you can be talking about something that's personal, and it might spark into something that becomes creative. So the flow between one and the other is more easy. But yeah, if you can do things that are yours and that you can leave behind the stresses of work, it makes it richer for both sides, I think.
I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about film, TV, music, and books and stuff. So would love you to share the different ones that helped you through a difficult time or had the most profound effect on you, and why. So first of all, piece of music, song, or film soundtrack.
Oh God, I used to walk to the studios when I worked in Yorkshire, and I used to run in my head the radio program Desert Island Discs, where you have to pick 7, 8 songs, and somewhat narcissistic enterprise, because it was always surrounded by an interview about yourself. And anyway, I never got invited on Desert Island Discs. I mean, for me, the music that provides solace, it changes from time to time. Listening to a lot of Bon Iver at the moment. I always used to listen to a lot of jazz, Miles Davis, kind of blue, Richard Thompson, Steely Dan, Sufjan Stevens is one of my things at the moment. But I think you've got to keep listening to new stuff, because otherwise you get stale. And I stopped running to my music tracks because I was getting bored of the stuff I knew. But I've always liked stuff that had a bit of a minor key to it, because I think that things that touch on the slightly you know, I think sad music often makes me happy, and I like, and you know, if you listen to a lot of jazz music, it's got flattened notes, and so for me, but I always like funk music. You know, I like disco, I like chic, I like Nile Rodgers. So I don't have one track that, you know, I will listen to for, you know, that I would, you know, to always listen to. It's a different one at different times, but I love music.
You've just reminded me of one. You know, when there's songs that you could repeat on a loop for so long and it'll always be fresh. It just reminded me of 1950s Black Lightning, Richard Thompson. And I love lyrics. It's like storytelling, like Bruce Springsteen. Any of the things, love that. I'm going to play that later. So thanks for reminding me. What about book, author?
Well, I always used to put down, and it would make people laugh. But when I first read Lord of the Rings when I was 12, and I always used to read. It got me through my divorce. It got me through odd, strange times. And then when the kids grew up, I used to read it to them. And then me and my now 20-year-old son, we would have sort of Lord of the Rings nights when it became out as a movie. And you know, my brothers got it on audio tape. And it's not beautiful writing, although it's an amazing world, and I'm not a particularly sci-fi freak, but you know, I try and read quite a lot, and you know, I read quite a lot of a writer called James Elroy, who's a Los Angeles noir crime writer, and they're not soulful books, but the quality of the writing, quality of the Richard Ford, who's an American, well, they used to call it a dirty realist writer, who writes about a strange character called Frank, who's a sort of slightly confused middle-aged man with a kid. He sort of speaks to everyone. I'm reading Emile Zola at the moment, a fantastic book about kind of mine workers in a mine in the late 1880s and the sort of birth of trade union activity. And my son's very political, and I'm reading about it and thinking about, you know, great novelists encapsulate ideas in a way that journalists don't encapsulate it in the form of stories and feelings and emotions. And you know, I've got a book I've been trying to write for God knows how long, and there's things that are in the way of me completing that book. But I think if you can capture, as I said, I think I was talking earlier, I think if you can capture complexity in your art, that's the hardest thing, you know, and so novels are probably the highest form of that, you know, along with music. They're my two favorite things.
And visual art?
Yeah, I think keep going along to see an exhibition later. I'm not the world's, I don't have a refined eye for painting. I mean, I love abstract art. I love, you know, Rothko, and I love Kandinsky, and I love Matisse. And you know, if I'm in a town and I'm working, I'll go to a gallery and I'll wander around, and I will, but I don't feel that I'm, you know, if I listen to music, I can usually pick out subtleties in it, but that's partly because I play and I sing, and I sort of know a little bit. I think if you know how something is constructed, it helps you understand. So I've never painted, I've never taken photographs to any great skill, but yeah, I mean, I love photography. I love particularly 1950s American abstract art. For some reason, I get something out of that more than I do the great masters. But you know, you can't walk past a Rembrandt or a Goya without seeing there's extraordinary depth in those. And you know, I can remember, you know, wandering around the Impressionist paintings when I was young, and I had a job in Paris. You would get something out of that, but it's not something I would claim a deep understanding of. Yeah, I think for me, you know, film is about storytelling, and I'm at my best when I'm thinking about how to make a narrative. I think life is about constructing narrative. Businesses are about constructing narrative, and I think that we're humans of storytelling. And you think about, you know, you read a story to a kid to go to bed. When I go for a run, I'll often listen to a piece of storytelling, because there's something about the, you know, the 1001 Nights with Scheherazad's trying to stop herself being executed, so she tells him a story, and she keeps telling the story, and she keeps telling a story because stories are irresistible. And a painting can be a story, but it's a moment, and I think I'm more drawn to stories.
No pun intended. And then TV program or programs.
What that I watch?
Yeah.
Well, you know, a group of my friends from college used to get together to watch a series of programs long before box sets became sort of the thing and on digital or in literally DVD boxes. I mean, what am I watching at the moment? I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is just humor, very silly humor. I'm watching.
Does he ever learn, Larry David, in these things?
Yeah, occasionally I get accused of being a bit like Larry David. I think certainly if you're a bald Jewish man of a certain age, it's easy to have that foisted upon you. But yeah, no, I like crime, so I would watch, you know, True Detective. I would watch The Bridge. I would watch. Just about to watch Mindhunter. So I like those kinds of. Anyway, we watched Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is the John le Carré, and I think I've read every word he's ever written. I've listened to them on tape. I had a very weird experience going for a run once with it on tape, and he was walking up a path in absolute heat, and I was listening to his words coming the other way. But Tinker Tailor, which released in the, I suppose, the early
original
80s.
Or recent? Oh.
The original. I didn't like the film. The TV series, and the first 15 minutes of the first episode is a guy, and you don't really know who he is, but he's working his way on a train, he's working his way through a department store, and for about the first 15 or 20 minutes of this episode, there is pretty much no dialogue. I mean, it's just, you know, sounds, and I can't even remember how much music there is, and very hard to make that work now. And then you're thinking, well, of course he's a spy, and a spy who's trying to evade detection doesn't talk because he's in a foreign country. And of course it was brilliantly pure. We watched that, and I would see that every 5-6 years, and it's always good. And so I would say, and in documentaries, you know, I think tend to be drawn to, again, complex stories, whether they're about something. I just watched the Stephen Lawrence trilogy, which was magnificent, and it was shocking and revealing and sobering all at the same time. In a story you think you know everything about, and then suddenly a new piece of interview comes up and you learn more about it. That was fantastic.
In wrapping up, thank you for all of that. I just wondered whether there's anything up and coming projects that you wanted to talk about, or anything else to add?
Well, it's been announced. Yeah, we've got wonderful actor David Harewood, who we'll all know from what should we call it, Homeland, and he's the night manager. And I had the privilege of working with him. We did a film called Mrs. Mandela, and he played Nelson Mandela, and I got to know him then. Anyway, he's doing a film which I think is currently called Psychosis and Me, and he's exploring when he was sectioned as a young man for a psychotic episode, and he's going to find out what happened to him and what now happens if you are affected by psychotic experiences. So I think that could be a very powerful film about mental health, which is a thing that, you know, we all know in our own lives. You know, none of us are, you know, the idea of what is sanity and insanity is complex, but what he's going out and very bravely looking at is his own experience and sharing it with the world, and that will be out later in the year.
On what platforms you're allowed to say? In
that's been announced. It's on BBC Two, and I think it could go out in October, but we never know, and the title may not be. But it's David Harewood, and we're only just beginning to film.
Perfect. What's it called? Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put links to that under the video and stuff. And what's it called? Just wanted to find out if people wanted to connect with you in anything like that. Are you on social media or any other avenues?
Do
you take unsolicited pitches or anything like that? How does it work?
I currently am running a company called Films of Record, which we have a website, and Films of Record, it was set up by a civil libertarian called Roger Gray for Magnificent Man, and he did a lot of social justice stuff. So Films of Record, you will find easily on Google. I'm not very active on social media, and I've got a profile on LinkedIn, and I've got a profile, but I don't the only time I post is when I'm trying to raise money for charity. So I don't, I'm not hugely active. I mean, I'm on Twitter, and that's mainly to follow my beloved football team, Tottenham Hotspur, when we're playing. Yeah, I mean, I think that ideas are important, and if people have ideas for things that are genuinely new and genuinely revelatory, I will always find a way. And there's Films of Record have a solicitation email in there somewhere. I'm never very good on social media, but yeah.
I will add all of that. Thank you so much, Roy Ackerman from Films of Record.
And can I just put in that Olive herself is one of my most esteemed colleagues. We worked together at 2 different companies. It was a fantastic experience, and she's somebody who I think the thing, last comment, what are you most proud of? I think I'm most proud of the people I've worked with who've gone on and picked up the baton and gone on to do their own thing, because in the end it's never about oneself, it's about the teams and the people who, and if anybody has taken inspiration from any program I've made or anything I've said and gone on to do something that made a difference, that is what one